Now, today's top stories and Power of 5 weather from News 5. Sponsored by Akron Children's Hospital.
Good Sunday morning, Northeast Ohio, on this 23rd day of January, a time when here in the north, construction season tends to be put on hold. But fear not, those orange barrels will be returning soon enough. And when they do, we will be seeing more of them. I spoke earlier this week with Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about the $500 million coming to Ohio over the next 5 years to repair our bridges. And while that's welcome money for sure, we also wondered why our neighbors to the east, Pennsylvania, are seeing 3 times that. In the past, Ohio has had to get creative when it came to finding money for bridges. A decade ago, when it looked like the construction of the second Interbelt Bridge in Cleveland might be delayed by a decade, Governor John Kasich realized the state could get money it needed then by bonding against future turnpike revenue.
John, what is so amazing to me is somebody should have done this 25 years ago.
But with the recently passed bipartisan infrastructure law, the doors to the vault have been opened.
There will be $97 million coming to Ohio alone this year alone, just through the formula funds that are in here. And that's going to make a big difference in Cuyahoga County and really across the state in making it possible to improve those bridges that we count on every day.
And while the big bridges get the headlines, this program makes it possible to repair and replace the smaller, locally owned bridges that could be even more disruptive if lost in smaller communities.
Usually there's an 80-20 cost share with federal and local dollars, but we're going to cover 100% of the cost on key bridges that the local communities believe they wouldn't be able to get done otherwise.
In all, Ohio will receive nearly $500 million over the next 5 years, but neighboring Pennsylvania will get more than 3 times that, $1.6 billion. Buttigieg said it is need-based. While 5% of Ohio bridges are structurally deficient, the number is 3 times higher in the Commonwealth. Still, does what Ohio did a decade ago in finding money in our own state to replace some of our own bridges hurt us today? Taking that step a decade ago, does that hurt us in this funding now because we've done the right thing in a sense?
I don't think that'll be to the disadvantage of Ohio because the need is so great. And a state that's been responsibly acting to the best of their ability, they're going to be in a better position because you will have fewer of those absolutely desperate situations, but just as many places where these dollars that we're making available can be put to good use. And
Senator Sherrod Brown telling me on Thursday he doesn't believe that $500 million figure will hold, and they are working with the administration to get more bridge funds to be used here in Ohio. Well, I also spoke this week with Senator Brown and Senator Portman about the failure of the Senate to pass the Voting Rights Act this week. The measure would have made Election Day a federal holiday and expanded early mail-in voting. The vote came after President Biden made comments at a news conference that seemed to question whether the results of this November's elections would be free and fair. The White House has since clarified he was not casting doubt on the election. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman, who split their vote, are in agreement on this, that both sides should look to how Ohio runs elections as an example.
I used to run the election system in Ohio, and ever since I've seen at the time and since that Ohio elections are run smoothly and efficiently. I've never heard of an election where somebody was declared the winner that didn't really win in Ohio. It just doesn't happen.
Both sides need to pull back from this rhetoric, and we need to be able to tell people we have a system in place that works. And again, Ohio is a great example of that.
One interesting historical voting note on this day in particular, did you know that at one point in the United States, it was legal for states to make you pay a fee if you wanted to vote in a national election? Seriously, it was called a poll tax, and it wasn't finally banned until the 24th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, which actually happened on this date, January 23rd, back in 1964. Well, coming up next on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, they will have the very latest on the escalating situation in Ukraine. As you may know, Northeast Ohio is home to one of the nation's largest populations of Ukrainians, and they continue to watch this all very closely. Whether it's along State Road in Parma, Tremont, or other places, you'll find pockets where Ukrainians settled in Northeast Ohio over the last century.
They came here when America was industrializing. They came here for jobs.
Many after World War I, and many, like Andy Vadinsky's family, after World War II, when Russia first took over Ukraine. He's now the director of the Ukrainian Museum Archives in Tremont.
There's about 10,000 books here, nearly all of them 100 years old or more.
It's a place created 70 years ago as a home to Ukrainian history and cultural artifacts that were being destroyed during the Soviet Union's control of the country.
Scholars here in the West, and not just in Cleveland, said we have to preserve this because future generations won't know unless we preserve it.
Preserving history, it is said, is often the best way to avoid repeating it. And the history the Ukrainian people today are hoping to not see repeat is the growing threat of a Russian invasion, as Russian troops and hardware are being deployed to the areas around Ukraine's border. Vladimir Putin threatening, in his words, a military technical response unless he gets a guarantee that Ukraine won't join NATO.
This is a repeat of Tsarist policy, which set up the Russian Empire, obviously the Soviet Union, and now Putin is trying to reconstitute that imperial legacy.
Senator Rob Portman was in Ukraine last weekend, returning just Tuesday night.
We need to stand strong and unified in letting Vladimir Putin and Russia know that should there be another physical invasion of Ukraine, that the consequences will be devastating.
And that is something Fedynsky tells me he hopes is avoided for the good of the Ukrainian people and the Russian people as well. With Democracy 2022, I'm John Kosick. Enjoy your Sunday. Stay safe.
Sponsored by Akron Children's Hospital.